Shalom, shalom, shalom. Testing,
Shalom,
testing.
Shabbat, shalom.
Testing, shalom, shabbat, shalom, shabbat to all. All right, shalom, Israel, shalom, shalom. All right. Shalom, shalom. Everybody could hear me loud and clear up there? How was it? Everybody could hear me? Shalom.
Shalom,
Yes,
shalom.
sir. All right. So the green light is still working, right?
Yeah,
All
I
right.
still see it. Yep.
Okay. All right.
Still see it. Oh, so now hopefully flash again.
That's right.
Yeah, still see it.
All right. Shalom, everybody. Yes.
Shalom.
I'm just going to jump in a short class today. I was going to continue my class, but I'll probably do it for next week. But I just want to touch on some point that I covered last week. Just want to cover some, but I just want to put out a trivia question out there to the listening audience. The trivia question is this, and this is pertaining to the dynasty of Egypt. It's 18th dynasty of Egypt. The question is this: I want to put out there. Anybody you could look it up. You could Google it. All right. How long did the 18th dynasty of Egypt lasted for? How long did it rule for? That's the trivia question. Anybody could answer it. You could look at it. You could Google it. All right. How long did the 18th dynasty of Egypt lasted for? Because whenever anybody tells you that we were in Egypt for 430 years or 400 years, they have to tell you what dynasty that was. All right. If they can't tell you what dynasty it was and link it with the scriptures, then they don't know what they're talking about. Egypt was ran by dynasties, okay? And every dynasty had a rulership, a ruler, and an extent of time that it ruled for. And let me just give you a heads up. One of the longest ruling dynasty of Egypt, but it was not a native Egyptian dynasty. This was a foreign dynasty that came into Egypt, all right? And this dynasty was known as the Ptolemy, the Greek dynasty, all right? That Ptolemy dynasty lasted for 300 years. That's one of the longest reigning or ruling dynasty or foreign dynasty or entity that came into Egypt. But no indigenous native Egyptian empire never ruled for 400 years, nor 430 years. So if you're going to say we were in Egypt for 430 years, you have to prove the dynasty, who was running the dynasty, and who was the rulers of those dynasties. All right? That's what you got to prove. And it has to link with the scriptures. That's the trivia question. But I'm going to just give the answer. The 18th dynasty of Egypt only lasted for 255 years. 255 years. And we didn't stay the entire length of that dynasty when we came out of Egypt, right? Because when we left, it was still on its last leg, okay? So the 18th dynasty of Egypt only ruled for 255 years. So you cannot get 430 years, nor 400 years of slaves in the Egyptian kingdom. You have to show what dynasty it was and what time period, okay? Whether it's the first dynasty, second dynasty, all the way down to the last dynasty of Egypt, which was the Greek dynasty, which was the 30th dynasty of Egypt. Okay? That was the last dynasty of Egypt. And there was a dynasty that was in power when Solomon was ruling. And it's in the Bible too. It tells you the name of that ruler when Solomon was ruling. Okay? So that's just part of for my class that I taught last week. But I just want to touch on current events and certain things and go through a few scriptures. It's not going to be a long class. All right? Most High willing. Also, too, Another trivia question I want to ask the audience. How many years is a generation?
That should be easy.
I would say between 30 to 50.
Right. It's actually 40 years.
Oh,
40 years is a complete generation. And how do we know that? How do we know it according to scripture? The audience and that's watching too, they could put the answers up in there if you know. 40 years is a generation. And how do we know that? Okay, everybody remember, right? How long did we wander in the wilderness for?
40 years.
40 years.
So what generation,
And
man?
when we wandered for 40 years, the generation that came out, was that the same generation? The generation that was in the wilderness,
Right.
when we came out of the wilderness and went into the land, was that same generation?
I don't think so.
No,
Wow.
that was a different generation. That generation died out in the wilderness during that 40 years that we were in the wilderness. All right. Let me give you an example. Let's go to the scripture to prove that. Because what the Most High did, the Most High punished us. And he said, for every day that we wander in the wilderness, it was going to be a year added. All right, to that generation. So let's go to the book of Numbers. Okay, let's go to the book of Numbers, the 14th chapter.
The book of Numbers.
Numbers, the 14th chapter, right? And you know what? This
I'm trying to say you
we good if we could read the whole chapter, but I'll tell you what. Okay, we read the main verse and then we go back up to the first verse. All right, let's start from Numbers, the 14th chapter. And start here from start from the 27th verse. Numbers 14:27.
Yeah, we're in the book of Numbers, King James Version of the Bible, chapter 14, verse 27.
But the key verse that we're going to tackle is a 34th verse. So read Numbers 14:27.
Yep, Numbers 14, verse 27. How long shall I bear with this evil congregation,
Mm-hmm.
which murmur against me? I have heard the murmuring of the children of Israel, which they murmur against me.
So we were murmuring against Moses, going against Moses, bucking against him, trying to form a coup, trying to set up certain people, Dathan and Abiram to be rulers. Understand? Going against Moses. Moses, how dare you kill the people of the Most High? And they were murmuring and rebelling against Moses in the wilderness. Continue.
Say unto them, as truly as I live, said the Lord Most High, as ye have spoken in my ears, so will I do to you.
Mm-hmm.
Your carcasses shall fall in this wilderness, and all that were numbered of you, according to your whole number, from 20 years old and upward.
See, from 20 years and up. That's about the time, about close to the age that men go out to war. When you join the military. Most I say at 21, your young men join the military. So that's age for war, when you get that age. All right, continue.
Which have murmured against me. Doubtless ye shall not come into the land.
So this generation then go into the land. Continue.
Concerning which I swear to make you dwell therein. Have Caleb the son of...
No, save Caleb.
Okay, all right.
Save.
Oh, that part. Let me see. I swear to make you dwell therein, save Caleb the son of Jephunneh,
Mm-hmm.
and Joshua the son of Nun.
Mm-hmm. Their children, their family, and all the descendants of them, all right, they went into the land. But that other group, they didn't go into the land. All right, continue.
But your little ones, which she said should be a prey, them will I bring in, and they shall know the land which ye have despised. But as for you, your carcasses, they shall fall in the wilderness, and your children shall wander in the wilderness 40 years.
40 years. So that generation wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. Because remember, when Moses brought us out of Egypt, he was 80 years old. And Moses died at what age? How old was Moses when he died? Nope.
It's 140? No. It was,
How old was Moses when he brought us out of Egypt?
It was 80 when he brought us.
He was 80, right? So if he was with this generation for 40 years, how long did he live for? 120 years. Moses lived to be 120 years old. All right? So now read that verse again. So remember that. Moses lived to be 120 years. All right? Go ahead.
Yeah, reading from top again of Numbers chapter 14, verse 33. And your children shall wander in the wilderness 40 years and bear your whoredoms.
So that was a whole generation right there. All right? Go ahead.
Until your carcasses be wasted in the wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
After the number of the days in which ye searched the land, even 40 days, each day for a year.
See, every day that we've been in the wilderness was going to be add a year to give us a complete of 40 years. That's a complete generation. All right, continue.
Shall ye bear your iniquities even 40 years? And ye shall know my breach of promise.
Mm-hmm.
I, the Lord Most High, have said, I will surely do it unto all this evil congregation that are gathered together against me in the wilderness. They shall be consumed, and there they shall die.
Mm-hmm.
And the men which Moses sent to search the land, who returned and made all the congregation to murmur against him by bringing up a slander upon the land, even those men that did bring up the evil report upon the land, died by the plague before the Lord Most High.
Mm-hmm.
But Joshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, which were of the men that went to search the land, lived still.
Mm-hmm.
And Moses told these things, and Moses told these sayings unto all the children of Israel, and the people mourned greatly. And they rose up early in the morning and gat them up into the top of the mountain, saying, Lo, we be here, and will go up unto the place which the Lord Most High hath promised. For we have sinned. And Moses said, Wherefore now do ye transgress the commandment of the Lord Most High? But it shall not prosper. Go not up, for the Lord Most High is not among you, that ye be not smitten before your enemies. For the Amalekites and the Canaanites are there before you, and ye shall fall by the sword, because ye are turned away from the Lord Most High. Therefore the Lord Most High will not be with you. But they presumed to go up unto the hilltop. Nevertheless, the ark of the covenant of the Lord Most High and Moses departed not out of the camp.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Amalekites came down, and the Canaanites, which dwelt in that hill, and smote them, and discomfited them, even unto Hormah.
All right. So we see that 40 years represents a generation. That's that generation that died in the wilderness. And then he said a new generation went into the land. Okay. So But when we go back, we could back up and read start from the first verse.
Said first?
Yeah, read the first verse
Yeah.
of the same chapter.
The book of Numbers, chapter 14, verse 1. And all the congregation lifted up their voice.
But before you do that, go to Deuteronomy.
Yeah.
Go to Deuteronomy. Go to Deuteronomy. I'm gonna tell you right now. Go to 34 and let's start from let's start from the first verse. Deuteronomy 34 and 1.
Yeah, read the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 34, verse 1. And Moses went up from the plains of Moab unto the mountain of Nebo.
Mm-hmm. So we see where Mount Nebo is situated, right? Mount Nebo is situated in the area of the land of Moab. That's a mountainous area with high mountains in that area. So Mount Nebo. Okay, read on.
And Moses went up from the plains of Moab unto the mountain of Nebo to the top of Pisgah, that is over against Jericho. And the Lord Most High showed him all the land of Gilead unto Dan.
So the Most High was showing Moses all that land from the south to the north, to the east, and to the west. He was showing the whole land. Continue.
And all Naphtali, and the land of Ephraim, and Manasseh, and all the land of Judah, unto the utmost sea.
So he's showing you the areas where the tribes were situated, where the land was going to be situated. Because when you go to the top of Mount Nebo or Pisgah, you could see the whole entire land. You could see the whole view, right? You could see the whole entire view. Continue.
And the south, and the plain of the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees, unto Zoar. And the Lord Most High said unto him, This is the land which I, the Most High, swear unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob, saying, I will give it unto thy seed. I have caused thee to see it with thine eyes, but thou shalt not go over thither.
But the Most High said, you're not going to go over Moses. Why did the Most High allow Moses to go over into the land?
Why he didn't, you said?
Why did the Most High did not allow Moses to go over into the land? Right. Because when Moses smote the rock, he didn't give the Most High the praise and credit.
Right.
But it was time for Moses to give up his position. The Most High was going to bring in a new successor. He did his job. He did his work. You understand? Yes.
That's what say Adam Trap. So that just goes to say the way the Most High says to do something. I think he said to them, speak to the rock, right? But out of frustration,
out of frustration, he did because Israel was getting frustrated. Israel was
there you go,
driving him crazy.
Yeah.
So when he did it, he
lost focus.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And Israel could do that to you. They could piss you off so mad, you lose focus. And he did it in anger, not giving the Most High no praise. And the Most High like, what, Moses? You my man, but I'm sorry, man. You can't go into the land. And that was his only mistake he made. That was an honest mistake, but the Most High looks at that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He accurate precise, man. That's something.
So the Most High said, nah, Moses, when you get here, you're gonna look, you're gonna see the land, you're gonna overlook it, you're gonna see everything, but you're not going in. Right? I have a replacement for you. So that shows us we can't get big-minded and think that we the big shot. I know it all. I'm this. No, the Most High could have you removed anytime. Anytime the Most High could remove you and put somebody else in your place. You understand? Continue.
So, Numbers chapter 34, verse
5.
Yeah. So Moses, the servant of the Lord Most High, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord Most High. And he buried him in a valley in the land of Moab, over against Beth Peor. But no man knoweth of his sepulchre unto this day.
Mhm.
And Moses was 120 years old, and he died.
When he died.
Pardon me, when he died.
See, he was 120 years when he died. So Moses was with us in the wilderness for 40 years with that generation. And remember, he brought us up at the age of 80. And you go back 40 more years before that, when he brought us out of Egypt, he was 80. And when he was born, that's when the slavery started. And the slavery ended when he took us out with the Exodus. So when you look at it, how many years was that slavery in Egypt?
80 years.
80 years, because it started when he was born and it ended when he died. Okay, it wasn't no slavery before or after that. Before that, there wasn't no slavery under Joseph. There wasn't no slavery when Joseph reigned, and Joseph reigned for 80 years in Egypt. 80 years as a governor of Egypt. Then the scripture said, when Joseph died, even after when he died, we still had a space of time where there wasn't no slavery. But the slavery started when Moses was born. And it wasn't 400 years. It wasn't 430 years. Because like I said, the dynasty that we were in Egypt was the 18th dynasty of Egypt. And that dynasty only lasted for 255 years. There's no dynasty in Egypt that ever lasted for 430 years, nor 400 years. That was one of the longest reigning dynasty of a true native Egyptian, the 18th dynasty. Then the longest reigning dynasty under a foreign rulership of Egypt were the Ptolemies of Egypt, which came in and ruled for 300 years. But the 18th dynasty was the only dynasty that ruled the longest, which is 255 years. And if somebody can't prove to you and show you what dynasty we were in, if they can't prove that, and they can't tell you what dynasty we're in and who the dynasty was, they have to prove to show you in the scriptures and historically that we were in Egypt for 430 years or 400 years of slaves. If they can't prove that, then they don't have the understanding of that scripture. All right? Because that's a mystery. That's a mystery. But what was the total length of our time in Egypt? It's easy. I went over it last week. It's only 215 years. We spent 215 years in Egypt. It was only 215 years. And out of that 215 years, only 80 years of it was slavery. Because when do you start the count? When did the count begin when we went into Egypt?
Moses was a baby.
No.
Oh, no, you said when we went into Egypt?
When did we start the count
The count.
of us going to Egypt?
When Joseph spoke for his father?
Right, when his father went down to Egypt. That's when you start the count. And that wasn't 430 nor 400 years. That was only 215 years. From the time Jacob went into Egypt to the Exodus was only 215 years. The other 215 years was with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the land. You understand? Then the other half of the 215 years began when Jacob went down into Egypt until the Exodus. And that gives you the total combination of the 430 years that the Most High was talking about. Because, hold that. Let's finish reading that, right? Finish reading that. I want to show you something. Finish reading
Deuteronomy
that.
34, verse 6. No, 7.
Mm-hmm.
And Moses was 100. Pardon, verse 8. Pardon me. Deuteronomy 34, verse 8.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I'm going to 7. I didn't finish the whole thing. And Moses was 120 years old when he died.
Mm-hmm.
His eye was not dim, nor his natural force abated.
So there wasn't no wrinkle or nothing in his face. He still looked young. Okay? His vision was still good. All right? Continue.
And the children of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days.
See, they mourned and wept for Moses for 30 days, a whole month. All right, continue.
So the days of weeping and mourning for Moses were ended.
Mm-hmm.
And Joshua the son of Nun was full of the spirit of wisdom, for Moses had laid his hands upon him. And the children of Israel hearkened unto him, and did as the Lord Most High commanded Moses. And there arose not a prophet since in Israel like unto Moses, whom the Lord Most High knew face to face.
Mm-hmm.
And all the signs and the wonders which the Lord Most High sent him to do in the land of Egypt to Pharaoh, and to all his servants, and to all his land,
Mm-hmm.
and in all that mighty hand, and in all that mighty hand, and in all the great terror which Moses showed in the sight of all Israel.
All right. Okay, so let's go here to Exodus. I want to show you something here. Because when you read this verse in Exodus, right? Exodus 12, the 12th chapter, right? Let me show you something here. And
Verse 3.
now, Exodus 12, and read the 40 verse.
44. Okay. Read the book of Exodus, chapter 12, verse 40. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years.
Now, see here, in other manuscripts, you know what it says in those other manuscripts? It says, now the sojourning of the children of Israel and their fathers in the land of Canaan and Egypt is 430 years. This was omitted in the King James Version. Other manuscripts, like the other books that was written before,
English translation or
other
something?
translation that was written
NIV?
before this version, like the Septuagint and other books, tells you. It says, now the sojourning of the children of Israel and of their fathers in the land of Canaan and Egypt is 430 years. It combined the duration of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the land of Canaan and when Jacob went down to Egypt. You understand? So this was omitted in the scriptures here, okay, in this King James Version, but other manuscript tells you exactly the way it was written. All right, read that verse again.
From the top of Exodus, chapter 12, verse 40. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the self same day, it came to pass.
See, when it says even at the self same day, what was the self same day? The same day that the Most High made the covenant with Abraham back 430 years, in the springtime of that same day of the Passover. That's when the Most High made the covenant with Abraham, when he told Abraham that. So the 430 years is a combination of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the land of Canaan. And then the other half of it is when Jacob went down to Egypt with his sons until the Exodus. That gives you a complete combination of the 430 years, not 430 years of us enslaved in Egypt. There is no records to prove that. Not even the Egyptian chronicles and records prove that. All right? And if we're going to base any biblical prophecies, what has to be? Which way which is the right way? Does the Bible have to be based on history, or history has to be based on the Bible?
History has to be based on the Bible.
History has to be based on the Bible. You understand? That's the way it goes. And then when you look at any Egyptian chronicles, any history in any dynasty, you will never see a nation of people was 430 years as slaves in Egypt. You can't find it. There's no chronicle records. All right, because as I said, there's no dynasty in Egypt that ruled for 430 years, not even 400 years. The longest reigning dynasty, which was of a native Egyptian, was the 18th dynasty, and that only ruled for 255 years. 255 years. And the first ruler of that dynasty was who? That's why when you read in the scriptures, when the scripture tells you there arose a king that knew not Joseph, that has to link with history. Who was that king that knew not Joseph? Because remember, when Joseph died, they said he came a new king that knew not Joseph. Who was that new king? That new king came from the 17th dynasty of Egypt. And that king was known as Amuz. And he overthrew the Hyksos. All right. Then his son, Amenhotep I, became the ruler after he died. So Amuz was that ruler that took over. And that's the Pharaoh, the king of Pharaoh that knew not Joseph. You understand? Because the Pharaoh that was ruling while Joseph was in Egypt was not a native Egyptian. They were Hyksos. Everybody heard of the Hyksos, right? The Hyksos were foreign rulers of Egypt. Ramses came in the 19th dynasty after we left. The movie had it wrong. Ramses came in the 19th dynasty. Ramses was not in the 18th dynasty. See, when you study those Egyptian dynasty, you'll see that. All right? Because it's a lot of history and that history, it falls in line with the Bible too. But you have to get the time period right. The time period has to be right. So you have to find out when the scripture said there arose a king that knew not Joseph, you have to find out who was that king and what time period was that. That's the key components to find out what dynasty we were in Egypt.
So the king that
Amuz. All right. And his son was Amenhotep I. He was the king that came because they took over that 17th dynasty. And that 17th dynasty that they had became the 18th dynasty of Egypt. Google the 18th dynasty and you'll see. That became one of the greatest dynasties in Egypt. Why? Because we were in that dynasty as slaves. And it wasn't 430 years nor 400 years. All right? So we read that, right?
Yep.
It says in the self-same year is when the Most High made the covenant with Abraham 430 years before. All right? Now, let's go to Acts. Let's go to Acts, the 7th chapter. I want to show you something. Let's go to Acts, the 7th chapter. Acts 7. And start here from the 12th verse. Acts 7 and 12.
The book of Acts, chapter 7, verse 12. But when Jacob heard that there was corn in Egypt, he sent out our fathers first.
Mm-hmm.
And at the second time, Joseph was made known to his brethren.
Mm-hmm.
And Joseph's kindred was made known unto Pharaoh.
All right, so that's when they came into Egypt now. Okay, continue.
Then sent Joseph and called his father Jacob to him, and all his kindred, 75 souls.
So that's when everybody came down to Egypt now. When Jacob went down, all his sons went down, everybody went down to Egypt now. That's when they began to sojourn and go down to Egypt. Now, while Joseph was ruling in Egypt, was there any slavery?
No.
There was not one lick of slavery. Not one lick. And how long did Joseph rule for? 80 years. 80 years as a governor in Egypt. Because remember, he was sold into Egypt at the age of 17. And at 30, that's when he became governor. So altogether, how long did Joseph himself live in Egypt? Joseph lived the longest in Egypt.
130?
I was going to say 130.
No, he lived 93 years in Egypt. 93 years, because he died at 110. So remember, he was sold into Egypt at 17. And at 30, he became governor. And from the age of 30 until he died at 110, that's when he ruled in Egypt for those 80 years. And within those 80 years that he ruled, we were free in Egypt. No problem. We were living good. We were like you say how we were in Black Wall Street and all the different. We were prosperous during that era because we were not oppressed.
Right.
We had free reign. That's why they said when the Pharaoh came in, he said, then there came a new king that knew not Joseph. And when he came in, he said, it's over. That's it. No more of that rulership and free reign. Y'all going in slavery. Yes.
I want to say something pertaining to that. Is the reason why, because at some point, because we were disobedient against the Most High, that's why we went slavery, right?
No.
Just
No.
like they took Black Wall Street in today's world. Remember when we had Black
The
Wall Street?
reason why it happened because the Egyptians, which was ruling in Upper Egypt, that was the 17th dynasty of Egypt. What happened when the Hyksos was in Egypt? The Hyksos invaded Egypt and pushed them down to Upper Egypt, and the Hyksos took over Egypt and was ruling in Egypt over the true Egyptians. So when the true Egyptian came back into power now, when they was able to defeat the Ethiopians, the Nubians, and the Hyksos, then they say, now, you Hebrews, you enjoying that pleasure? Not no more. And remember, the enemy is not going to allow you to reign over him. So what they're going to do, they're going to subjugate you. And they knew that we were ruling out in Egypt under Joseph. So they're not going to allow us to continue to rule when they're coming back into their power. Remember, that was the greatest humiliation of Egypt. No, the Hyksos were not Israelites. No, the Hyksos were family to the Egyptians, but they were not Egyptians. They were Canaanites. All right, they were known as shepherd kings. So when they took over Egypt, that was the most embarrassing and most humiliating era in Egyptian history. It was so embarrassing that when the Egyptians from Upper Egypt under the 17th dynasty came back into power, they did not include the 15th and 16th dynasty. They skipped that dynasty because that dynasty was the dynasty of the Hyksos. And they skipped the 15th and 16th, and they went to the 17th dynasty, which was down in Upper Egypt. And when they was able to come back into full power, they took over the new kingdom, and it was called the 18th dynasty of Egypt. And that's the dynasty that we were in when Joseph died. So when they came into power, they said, nah, we can't have you Hebrews here doing the same thing while Joseph was in power. Because Joseph was able to get in good with the Hyksos. They allowed us to reign in Egypt. That's why they gave Joseph to become governor, the position. So when they gave Joseph that position, Joseph allowed us to come in. Remember, the Most High Joseph told his brethren, the Most High had set me up to provide the way for you in Egypt. So when they came into Egypt, they were enjoying that splendor and that glory under Joseph. Then when he died, and the Hyksos and the Hyksos were expelled, and the true Egyptians came back into power and took over that 18th dynasty, they said, nah, See, and when you read those statements, they said, and remember they said, let us put taskmasters over them. It said, lest they go join with our enemies and fight against us. because the Egyptians were fighting against the Nubians down in Upper Egypt, and the Hyksos were their enemies. So they couldn't allow us to continue to have that free reign in Egypt. So that's why they enslaved us. All right? And when they started to enslave us, it was when Moses was born. All right? Because remember, 80 years, there wasn't no slavery prior to that. And even after Joseph died, we still had a leadway of freedom. Then, now when we go to Acts now, it's going to tell you when the slavery kicked in. Right? So let's go to Acts now. And what verse you in? The 14th verse, right? No, you're in the 15th verse now.
Yeah, 15. Yeah.
Acts 7 and 15.
Yeah, remember the book of Acts, chapter 7, verse 15. So Jacob went down into Egypt and died, he and our fathers.
And Jacob lived 17 years in Egypt, then he died. All right? He lived to be 147 years old. He left Canaan at the age of 30, and he lived in Egypt for 17 years. And he died at the age of 147. Continue.
And were carried over into Shechem and laid in the sepulchre that Abraham brought for a sum of money of the sons of Emor, the father of Shechem. But when the time of the promise drew nigh, which God Most High had sworn to Abraham.
See, the Most High made that promise to Abraham 430 years before we came out of Egypt. That's when the count began, when the Most High made the promise with Abraham. Continue.
God has sworn to Abraham, the people grew and multiplied in Egypt.
See, and we grew and multiplied in Egypt under Joseph when we had that free reign. Right? Continue.
Till another king arose, which knew not Joseph.
See, when another king that came that knew not Joseph. Now, did he knew Joseph? Yes, he knew of his fame.
Oh, no, well, you know that part.
All of them knew of Joseph's fame because remember, Joseph was the one that saved Egypt. When there was a famine, everybody had to go to Egypt for food. And who was in charge of that? Joseph. So they knew about Joseph, but he said, I don't give a damn. You enjoyed that benefit with Joseph. I don't care. Joseph not here now. I'm the new sheriff in town. So that's what he's saying. Listen, I'm the new sheriff in town. To hell with Joseph. He's dead. I'm coming to rule now. They knew about Joseph. It was only 64 years. It wasn't that long. He knew, but he didn't regard Joseph. He didn't care about Joseph. They knew about the fame of Joseph. Joseph's fame went all throughout Egypt of what he did. He saved Egypt. He was a governor. Everybody came to Egypt for food because of Joseph. So of course they had to know about him. Because remember, Egypt is divided into 3 sections of the land. Lower Egypt, which is up north, where we were situated. Middle Egypt, right? The Middle Kingdom. And you had Upper Egypt, which is down south, which is situated in the area close to Nubia, where the Ethiopians and where Sudan is situated. So that empire was ruled by the Thebes dynasty under Ammuz. So when he came back into power, he said, to hell with Joseph. I don't give a damn about Joseph. So he didn't regard what Joseph did for us. So that's what it meant. He said he knew not Joseph. He knew him. He knew about his fame, but he didn't care what he did. You understand? Because they had a mission to accomplish. Read that verse again.
From the top of Acts chapter 7, verse 18. To another king arose, which knew not Joseph. The same dealt subtly with our kindred and evil entreated our fathers.
So that's what he did. He said, I'm not going to allow you to enjoy the things that Joseph allowed you to enjoy. I'm the new sheriff in town. I'm the man now. I'm here to take you down because we're coming back into our rulership as the true native Egyptians. Because who was ruling prior to that before? The Hyksos. They were not Egyptians. That was the greatest humiliation in Egyptian history. So Egypt was humiliated by that. And they could say, no, we can't have this. We can't have our enemies ruling our land over us. So when they came back to rule, they came back with a vengeance. And whoever was there had to pay the price. That's why he did what he did. All right? Continue.
So that they cast out their young children to the end they might not live,
Mm-hmm.
in which time Moses was born
Who was born in that time? What time was this?
and was exceeding fair.
This was the time of the slavery when
Oh,
Moses was
yeah,
born.
Yeah, right, time slave.
And remember, Moses is the key figure. Remember, key figures are born at certain events in our history. Remember when Herod was killing the firstborn? Who was born?
Yahushua.
Yahushua. All right? So Moses was a key figure now. He was the main person. He was the main star now because he was the one that dealt with Pharaoh. The Most High sent him to talk to Pharaoh and tell Pharaoh what was going to happen to Pharaoh. All right? And remember, when Moses got to a certain age, what happened? When he got to a certain age and he saw what the Egyptians was doing, what did he do?
Oh, he wanted to be just like them, being afflicted.
He saw
wanted to
the
deal with them.
oppression of his people, and he
People,
said,
right.
no, I can't deal with this. So what he did, he killed the Egyptian.
Yep.
And when he killed him, what happened?
He had to fled. He fled.
Because Israel was going to rat him out.
Yeah.
His own people was going to rat him out. So when he saw it, he said, what? He said, this thing is known. If you know this, then the Egyptians know this. And that's called what?
Not confident. No.
When you commit a crime like that, when you are a general
Yes,
and you commit a crime against your own people, treason.
Yeah,
That's called treason. So Moses knew, and Moses said, oh, I got to leave this place now. All right? And it's going to tell you what age he was when he left. Let's read on.
In the book of Acts, chapter 7, verse still 20 again. In which time Moses was born and was exceeding fair and nourished up his father's house 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was cast out, Pharaoh's daughter took him up and nourished him for her own son.
So she took Moses and raised him for her son. So Moses grew up in the Egyptian culture, speaking Egyptian, doing everything like an Egyptian, looking like an Egyptian. All right? Because he was brought up in the Egyptian culture. Yes.
Now, I won't say Andrew saying, but at the time when they brought him up, he didn't even know who he was at the time. Am I right? Somewhat, he didn't know.
He knew.
Go ahead.
He knew, but he had to go along with the program.
Right. Yeah, no problem.
You understand? He knew because when he saw his brothers being afflicted,
Right.
he had to know that before. You understand?
Yeah, he knew before, but he
You
didn't.
understand? But it wasn't that time to act right. Everything is based on timing. There's a time and chance happening for every man. All right? It was that time the Most High was ready to make that move with him. All right? But because remember, Miriam was taking care of him. And remember, she gave Pharaoh's daughter what? One of his clothing.
Okay, right.
And she kept it. She knew Moses was a Hebrew.
Well, she knew, yeah.
Yeah. So you think she's not going to tell him he was a Hebrew?
Oh, right. True that.
Yeah.
Right.
She raised him.
Okay, true that.
You understand? She raised him. She took him out from the Nile, and she said, this is one of the Hebrews.
Right.
When she saw him. Yeah, and she raised him. You understand? So, and then Miriam was constantly going and looking at him, watching over him.
Right.
You understand? But it wasn't time for him yet to do what he did. Everything is based on timing. Because he couldn't deal with it no more. Like, wait a minute, you're oppressing my people. All right? Read on.
Acts chapter 7, verse 22. And Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians,
Mm-hmm.
and was mighty in words and in deeds.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was full 40 years old, it came into his heart to visit his brethren, the children of Israel.
See, now that spirit came upon him like, nah, man, this can't go on, man. It's that time. It's just a point in time that When the Most High just put that spirit in you
Yeah,
and he said, listen,
light
it's
switch.
time now. It's time. All right, continue.
And seeing one of them suffer wrong, he defended him and avenged him that was oppressed, and smote the Egyptian.
And he killed that Egyptian. Continue.
For he supposed his brethren would have understood how that God Most High by his hand would deliver them, but they understood not.
They didn't see that. All right, continue.
And the next day he showed himself unto them as they strove, and would have set them at one again, saying, Sirs, ye are brethren, why do ye wrong one to another? But he that did his neighbor wrong, thrust him away, saying, Who made thee a ruler and a judge over us?
Typical Israelite. Typical Israelite. Who are you, man? Who made you a judge over me, man? Who you think you are, nigga? Typical Israelite. All right. Okay, continue.
Wilt thou kill me as thou didst the Egyptian yesterday?
See what he said? You gonna kill me now? What, you gonna kill me now like you killed the Egyptian? So when Moses heard that, Moses like, wow. Moses said, wow, this dude's gonna rat me out, man. All right, continue.
Then fled Moses at this saying, and was a stranger in the land of Midian, where he begot 2 sons.
Mm-hmm.
And when 40 years were expired,
See, now when 40 years was expired, remember how old was he when he saw them fighting? 40. So it said now it said in this verse now, in 30, it says when the 40 years were expired, that he was in the land of Midian, he came back into Egypt at the age of 80. And when he came back to Egypt to speak to the Pharaoh, he was still 80 years old. And even when he came out, because what happened when he came back into Egypt, this was in years after. The most this was 2 weeks, because remember what was coming up next? The Passover. This was the most was 2 weeks from the time he came back to the time of the Exodus. The most was 2 weeks because the plagues and all the events that took place. Then right after the last plague, that's when we left out of Egypt. Yeah.
I want to say pertaining to that. Remember when you said when the king that arose knew not Joseph? Now with Moses, you already know what I'm going to say. Pharaoh in Exodus 5, verse 2, he said, Who's this Lord? He said, I know not the Lord.
Right.
Same
All
thing.
right. So read 30 again.
Read the book of Acts chapter 7, verse 30. And when 40 years were expired, there appeared to him in the wilderness of Mount Sinai an angel of the Lord out of one in a flame of the fire in a bush.
Mm-hmm.
When Moses saw it, he wondered at the sight. And as he drew near to behold it, the voice of the Lord out of one came unto him, saying, I am God most high of thy
I'm
fathers.
the power. I'm the power.
Yeah. Saying, I am the power of thy fathers, the power of Abraham, the power of Isaac, and God most high power of Jacob. Then Moses trembled and durst not behold.
Mm-hmm.
Then said the Lord out of one to him, Put off thy shoes from thy feet, for the place where thou standest is holy ground.
So where was Moses at this particular time?
Mount Sinai.
Right. And where is Mount Sinai?
It's outside of Egypt. Or no. I don't want to guess. Well, hold on.
Where is Mount Sinai geographically? Hold that. Let's go to Galatians. Let's go to Galatians and come back right here. All right, go to Galatians, the 4th chapter, right?
Yeah, right here, 4th chapter. Right here.
And go right here to, we go straight to
Oh.
it.
25th. Say it again.
We go straight to it. Galatians 4.
25. Mount Sinai, Arabia.
Galatians 4:25.
25. Yeah, I was right. Yeah. Remember Galatians chapter 4, verse 25. For this Agar is Mount Sinai in Arabia.
See, Mount Sinai is in Saudi Arabia. All right, on the southern point of it, right next to Egypt and the wilderness. All right, go ahead.
And answered to Jerusalem, and answer it to Jerusalem, which now is and is in bondage with her children. But Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all.
All right, so we see that Mount Sinai is in Arabia. All right, in Saudi Arabia. All right, when you look on the map, you see Saudi Arabia over there. It's right there in the southern tip of Saudi Arabia in the desert. All right, so that's where the Most High met Moses in the burning bush. Okay, so let's go back to Acts.
No, or Numbers. Which one? Let's go class.
Okay, so we left off in 33, right?
Yes, sir, 33. Well, no, hold on.
34. 34. 34 verse.
Yeah, 34. Yeah. Read our book of Acts, chapter 7, verse 34. I have seen the affliction of my people which is in Egypt, and now the Most High have heard their groaning, and am come down to deliver them. And now come, I will send thee into Egypt.
So now the Most High is getting ready to send him into Egypt now. Continue.
This Moses whom they refused, saying, who made thee a ruler and a judge? The same did God Most High Power send to be a ruler and a deliverer by the hand of the angel which appeared to him in the bush. He brought them out after that he had showed wonders and signs in the land of Egypt and in the Red Sea and in the wilderness 40 years.
See, and he was in the wilderness 40 years with them. All right. Now from there, go to Exodus, 7th chapter, and start from read the first verse, Exodus 7:1.
The book of Exodus, chapter 7, verse 1. And the Lord Most High said unto Moses, see, I have made thee a God to Pharaoh, and Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet. Thou shalt speak all that I command thee, and Aaron thy brother shall speak unto Pharaoh, that he send the children of Israel out of his land. And I the Most High will harden Pharaoh's heart, and multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt. But Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that I may lay my hand upon Egypt and bring forth my armies and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt by great judgments. And the Egyptians shall know that I, the Most High, am the Lord Most High, when I stretch forth mine hand upon Egypt and bring out the children of Israel from among them. And Moses and Aaron did as the Lord Most High commanded them, so did they. And Moses was 80 years old.
How old was he?
80 years old, 40.
80.
Well, pardon me, 80, 80. Yeah.
80 is 80.
80, yeah,
Moses was 80 years old when he was still in Pharaoh, the judgment that the Most High is going to bring upon them. Continue.
And Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron 83 years.
And Aaron was 83 years old. All right, go ahead.
When they spake unto Pharaoh, and the Lord Most High spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, when Pharaoh shall speak unto you, saying, show a miracle for you.
So when he was doing all these things, this was in years after. This was only leading up to a week or a little less than 2 weeks before we came out with the Exodus. So when you look at it, when the slavery started when Moses was born, and it ended when Moses brought us out with the Exodus. So which gives you what? How many years altogether?
80 years.
80 years. And you know, I used to teach that we were in Egypt for 430 years, 400 years. But when I saw this 12 years ago, when I saw Moses' age here, it opened my eye to like, wow, 80 years. And then everything just started to click with all the scriptures. I was like, wow, it was right there all the time. Right there all the time. So when the Most High opened your eyes to certain things, you understand? And when I saw it, it hit me like, bam, like, because I read the scripture many times. When I read, I said, what? Moses was 80 years old? I said, wow, that's the length of the slavery. And then when you went to Acts, it tells you at this time Moses was born. Moses was born during the time of the slavery. It wasn't no slavery before that because Joseph was ruling. And you can't get 400 years from the time Moses was born. You can't get 400 years of slavery from the time he was born to the time he came out. It's impossible. It's impossible. And you can't get 400 years from the time that Joseph was ruling. It's impossible because Joseph was only in Egypt. Total amount of time, years that Joseph was in Egypt was 93 years because he went in at the age of 17 and he died at 110 and he began to rule at the age of 30. And from 30 until he died, that's when he ruled. That's a total of 80 years. And within those 80 years that he ruled, there wasn't no slavery. So when did the slavery begin?
Moses.
When Moses was born. And if you say, okay, some people say, no, Banyamyan, it started 200 years before Moses was born. If you say that, you still don't get 400 years as slaves in Egypt. You still don't get 430 years in Egypt. Even if you go back 200 years, and which is impossible because 200 years, Joseph wasn't even born yet. "200 years ago, Abraham was just born. But let me say, 200 years, no, Abraham wasn't even born yet. Because Abraham lived to be what, 175 years? So there's no way you could get 400 years because Abraham went down to Egypt before any of us. And Joseph, like I said, when he went down to Egypt, he was the age of 17. As a teenager, well, I won't say a young man, young. Then at 30, that's when he became a ruler. And for those 80 years, he ruled Egypt. There wasn't no slavery. No slavery. And even when he died, there still wasn't no slavery. So we got to figure, when did the slavery begin? It had to be when Moses was born. Because Moses is the key figure that the Most High was using. For some people, that's kind of like, that's confusing. But it's not really confusing. Yes.
Let's say something pertaining to that. Once Moses fled and everything, Moses, I had him in training. And when he asked, I think her name was Zephra, the Von Nicolo, he said, what's that great light up there? She said, the Most High went to Mount Sinai. And, the spirit he wanted to see, he went up there, it goes on. But when he came down, and then, because, he was, I forgot what scripture in the Bible, he was slow of speech, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he was saying to the Most High, like, how can you choose me to go back to Egypt.
But when he said he was slow of speech, what did he mean by that?
That he didn't speak properly. He like stuttered. They said
No,
What-
he didn't
what-
speak. He didn't speak
eloquently.
the Hebrew eloquently.
okay, right,
Because
yeah.
remember, it says Moses was learned in all the wisdom of Egypt,
Right. Yes. Right.
and he was of great deeds. Understand? So if you learn in all the wisdom of Egypt, how are you going to be slow of speech? He
That's
was
what I
slow
saw
of speech in the Hebrew.
in the Hebrew. Right. So I knew
That's
so
why
that's
Aaron had to be his mouthpiece.
right. Mouthpiece. Right. Okay.
You understand? But he wasn't slow because remember, Moses knew science, math,
Right.
and he also knew what? 2 languages.
We said who?
You could say Moses knew 3 languages.
Oh, okay.
What was the 3 languages that he knew?
One was speaking Egyptian. No, if I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
Of what is it?
Arabic,
What that? I won't say which one. but I
because
was-
Medians were Arabs. He had to know how to speak Arabic,
Okay.
right? And he knew a little Hebrew, but he
Just
wasn't fluent in the Hebrew
Fluent. Okay.
because he had to speak to Aaron.
Right.
He had to speak to us.
Okay.
So he wasn't eloquent or fluent in the Hebrew.
Right. Okay. Hebrew. Right. But I know the Most High built up his confidence. It was obvious because he went down there. When
Right.
we left him up there, that glow was on him. But yeah, that's what
You
I'm saying.
understand? So from the lifetime of Moses to the time that he brought us out of Egypt was only 80 years. And Moses never served no time in slavery. Only his brothers and his sisters. And so I want to show you too, even with Moses, to show you that it was in 400 years. Moses' generation, his generation was only 2 generations that was in slavery. Because who was Moses' father? Everybody remember Amram?
Okay. Yeah. God, which one's that?
All right. From the birth of Moses to Moses' father, his grandfather was only 2 generations. All right. Let me show you that in Exodus. Let's go to Exodus 6. I want to show you something. Go to Exodus 6. I want to share something right here.
Six, right across the page, yeah.
Go to Exodus 6 and 16.
The book of Exodus, chapter 6, verse 16. And these are the names of the sons of Levi according to their generations.
So we all know Moses came from the tribe of Levi, right?
Con.
Okay. So Levi was born where? Where was Levi born? Was Levi born in Egypt?
No. What? I guess I started saying.
I should know that. Jacob's son. How many sons Jacob's had? Right? So remember, all his 12 sons were born in the land of Canaan. Yeah. Levi was born in Canaan. Levi wasn't born in Egypt. Okay? Neither did Levi's son was born in Egypt. They were born in Canaan. Because remember, how many people came out of Canaan with Jacob? 70. So he came with his sons, his grandsons. All right? So I'm going to show you when we read it. Read the 16th verse again.
From the top, Exodus chapter 6, verse 16.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the names of the sons of Levi according to their generations: Gershon, Kohath, and Merari.
Right.
Maria.
These are the 3 sons that came out of Levi. Kohath,
Maria,
Merari,
Mari.
Gershon, Kohath. Those are the 3 families of the priests, of the priest families. All right? Go ahead.
And the years of the life of Levi were 137 years.
So Levi lived to be 137 years, and he died in Egypt. Levi died in Egypt. All right, go ahead.
The sons of Gershon, Libni, and Shimei, according to their families. And the sons of Kohath,
Now, Moses came from the family line of Kohath. That's his family line, the Kohath. All right, so read 18 again.
Exodus 6, verse 18. And the sons of Kohath, Amram, and Izhar, and Hebron, and Uziel, and the years of the life of Kohath were 133 years.
Mhm.
And the sons of Merari, Mahali, and Mushi, these are the families of Levi according to their generations.
Mhm.
And Amram took him Jochebed,
Jochebed.
Jochebed,
So Amram is Moses' father. All right, and Jochebed is his mother. All right, go ahead.
his father's sister, to wife, and she bare him Aaron. And Moses and the years of the life of Amram were 137 years.
Mhm.
And the sons of Izhar, Korah, and Nepheg, and Zerhi. And the sons of Uziel, Meshel, and Elzaphon, and Zitzri. And Aaron took him Elisabah, daughter of Amminadab, sister of Nishon, to wife, and she bare him Nadab, and Abihu, Eliziah, and Ithamar. And the sons of Korah, Asir.
Okay, so
And-
you see this verse here when you this verse here in 20, Amram was Moses' father, right? Amram was born into slavery. All right? He was born into slavery, right? And while he was born into slavery, he had who? Moses and Aaron. That was born right in Egypt in the slavery. All right? But going back before that, Moses' grandfather, his grandfather wasn't born in Egypt. His grandfather was born in the land of Canaan. So when he came into Egypt, he had Amram, and then right after that, Amram had Moses and Aaron. So there was only two generations that was born into slavery, Amram and Moses. But Moses' grandfather wasn't born in Egypt. He was born in the land of Canaan, because remember, they came with Levi. So that was only two generations from the time he had Moses. So that couldn't have been 400 years. Two generations is not 400 years. Because Amram had Moses right after while they were in Egypt. And all the sons prior to that, the three sons before that, were born in the land of Canaan. So Amram and Moses were the only ones that were born in Egypt. Because how long did Amram live for? 137 years. Then he had Moses. It might sound confusing, but when you look at it and you check out the family line, it doesn't give you 400 years. It's way shorter than that. The time span from time Amram gave birth to Moses is not 400 years. All right. But that's pretty much on that. You know, I mean, you could go back over the scriptures. Everybody don't quite understand it, but to give you a better understanding, when you check out the time period of the dynasty that ruled Egypt, there's no dynasty in Egypt that ruled for 430 years or 400 years. There's none. If anybody tell you so, they have to prove and show you the name of the dynasty and who was ruling. If they can't show and prove that, then the information is wrong. You have to show the kingdom, the ruler, and the dynasty that was ruling. And all history, historians and scholars point to the 18th dynasty of Egypt. The 18th dynasty of Egypt. Now, some have it 255 years, some have 257 years. The length of the rulership of that dynasty. You could Google it right now. Ask them, how long did the 18th dynasty of Egypt lasted for, or rule for, and see what it says. Pull it up and Google it and check it out.
250.
You got 250, right?
The 18th dynasty. Yes.
The 18th dynasty, right?
Yes, sir.
See? It ain't ruled for 400 years.
The 18th dynasty of Egypt lasted approximately 250 years, from around 1550 BC to 1292 BC.
And guess what? That's almost in similarity to what? What is that in similarity to?
Today.
To America's
America,
going to be
yeah.
250 years
Today.
in July 4th.
That's right. So I'm waiting for you to say it. Yeah.
250 years, the 18th dynasty. There's no dynasty in Egypt that ruled for 400 or 430 years that enslaved a people. There's none. You can't find it. You go back to all the earliest dynasties. None. The dynasty before that, the 17th dynasty, check out the date, how long the 17th dynasty ruled for. Look up the 17th dynasty. See how long it ruled for. That was known as the Thebes dynasty of Egypt.
Say it again. What?
It was known as the Thebes.
Thebes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thebes. The Thebes dynasty.
Thebes. Okay. I saw that word before. Thebes. Excuse me.
Approximately 30 years.
30 years. 30 years. And a dynasty is a rulership of different rulers, a family lineage of rulers.
Dynasty was significant as it marked the period of conflict against the Hyksos.
The Hyksos, they expelled the Hyksos. And when they expelled the Hyksos, they took over as rulers of the 18th dynasty. All right? Because the Hyksos ruled in the 15th and 16th dynasty of Egypt. All right? Now, some people might say, a lot of people might say that Imhotep is Joseph, but the time period is not matching up. Imhotep ruled in the 3rd dynasty of Egypt. We weren't even born yet. Abraham wasn't even born yet in the 3rd dynasty of Egypt. You understand? So it's impossible for Joseph to be Imhotep, no, unless the Egyptians got their time period wrong. But Imhotep was in the 3rd dynasty of Egypt. We were in the later dynasty. We couldn't have been in the earlier dynasty because we weren't a nation yet. We weren't even born. Now, some people try to tell you the Hyksos were the Israelites. No, it's not. The Hyksos was already a ruling empire while we were just family members in the land of Canaan. So there's no way we could have been the Hyksos. There's no way. All right? And Abraham went down to Egypt before. And when he went there, there was an empire, a dynasty ruling before. All right? So that's pretty much that. You know what I mean? I'm going to end the class here. I hope everybody got something out of it. If everybody don't understand it, let's go back and read those scriptures and look into it for yourself. And check out the time periods of the Egyptian dynasties. Look up the 18th dynasty, the 17th dynasty. I tell you what, if anybody got what I'm saying, Look up all the dynasties from the first dynasty up until the 18th dynasty and see how long each one of those dynasties ruled for. And you'll see that none of them ruled for 430 years nor 400 years. None of them. Yes.
Is it possible we could read the Exodus and Moses to the Egyptian law?
Yeah, we could read it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Got it? Which one?
It's in Exodus 2.
Exodus 2?
Yeah, I just start at verse 10. That's what it is.
Exodus. That book of Exodus.
Who has a Babylon to Timbuktu book? Nobody has a Babylon to Timbuktu?
Oh, no, I don't have it.
You don't have it, right?
I started Exodus chapter 2,
All right.
verse 10 up to verse 21.
Yeah. Read the book of Exodus chapter 2, verse 10. And the child grew,
Mm-hmm.
and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and he became her son.
Mm-hmm.
And she called his name Moses.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, because I drew him out of the water.
Right. So Moses' name came from the Egyptian Pharaoh. All right. Tutmosis. All right. Tutmos.
Okay.
Okay. That's where his name came from. Because it's an Egyptian name, meaning drawn from the water. All right. Okay. Go ahead. Because remember, she didn't name him a Hebrew name. She gave him an Egyptian name. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
And it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens.
Mm-hmm.
And he spied an Egyptian smiting the Hebrew and one of his brethren.
So he knew that was his people, but he kept that to himself. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Go ahead.
And he looked his way
He looked this way. He looked this way.
and that way.
Mm-hmm.
And when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and he hid himself in the sand.
And hit him in the sand. After he hit him in the sand. All right. And if that was known to the Egyptian, that was punishable by death for what he did. All right. Continue.
And when he went out the second day, behold, the two men of the Hebrews strove together. And he said to him that did the wrong, wherefore smitest thou thy fellow? And he said, who made thee a prince and a judge over us? Intendest thou to kill me as thou killest the Egyptian? And Moses feared and said, surely this thing is known. Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses, but Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian.
All right. So he dwelt in the land of Midian, which is in Saudi Arabia. All right. That's where Midian is located. All right. There's more to it.
Yes, yeah. The next verse says, now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water. Yep. And filled the troughs of water. Say it again.
After he dwelt in the land of Midian and he sat down by a well.
Yeah, MC. Now the priest of Midian has 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled their troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. Can I say something right quick? You know, as I read this, I'm thinking about the movie. You know, when Moses fled everything. Remember 10 Commandments? When he went to the well? And that was Zephyr was in Lily Munster and the Munsters. And then, you know, he got bullies on earth. And they was bullying. That's just, you know, this was just talking about right here. And then Moses, he knew how to fight. He had that staff too. And, you know, he did what he did. And then they fled. Yeah, I'm just saying the next verse here says, and the shepherds came down, drove them away. But Moses, he stood up and helped them and watered their flock. And when they came to Rio, their father, he said, how is it that ye are come so soon today? And they said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us and watered the flock. And he said unto his daughters, and he said unto his daughters, And where is he? Why is it that ye have left the man? Call him, that he may eat bread. And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses Zipporah, his daughter, and they bare him a son. She bare him a son, and he called his name Gershom.
Mhm.
For he said, I have been a stranger in a strange land. And it came to pass in process of time that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel signed by reason of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry came unto the Lord Most High, our power, by reason of the bondage. And God Most High power heard them groaning, and God Most High remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God the Most High power looked upon the children of Israel, and God Most High power had respect unto them.
All right.
And that's in it right there. Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
So
Thanks for
I just
pulling that
want
up.
to read
Say it again.
Kataza, read this here for me,
Yeah,
Kataza.
sure.
Get it, take Kataza to read from here. Underline it. Because let me get my glasses. Let me my glasses right.
Oh,
Yeah. All right. All right. Let me just want to read something. Okay, let me just read it here. Okay, in the book of the Josephus, Antiquities of the Jews states in book 2, chapter 15, in paragraph 2, it says, they left Egypt in the month of Xanthicus on the 15th day of the lunar month, 430 years after our forefather Abraham came into Canaan, but 215 years only after Jacob removed into Egypt. You hear that? William Winston, who translated the words of Flavius Josephus into English, included a footnote at the bottom of the page in regard to what Josephus wrote concerning the Israelites' 215 years stay in Egypt. Why our Masoretic copy so groundlessly abridges this account in Exodus 12 and 40 as to ascribe 430 years to the sole peregrination of the Israelites in Egypt, when it is clear evident by that Masoretic chronology elsewhere, as well as from the express text itself in the Samaritan text, the Septuagint, and Josephus, that they sojourned in Egypt but half that time, and that by consequences, the other half of their peregrination was in the land of Canaan before they came to Egypt is hard to say. So that's what he was saying. He's saying in the Joshua, it tells you that we were 215 years. All right. So I just want to read this other part here, right? It says here, the original scripture account of Exodus 12 and 40 from the Hebrew states. This is the original translation. Now, the sojourning of the children of Israel and of their fathers, which they have dwelt in the land of Canaan and in Egypt, was 430 years. You see the difference in the translation? That was the original translation. That's what it says. It says, the original scripture account of Exodus 12 and 40 from the Hebrew states, now the sojourning of the children of Israel and of their fathers, which they have dwelt in the land of Canaan and in Egypt was 430 years. So they combined those 215 years. The first half with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the land of Canaan, and the other half was when Jacob went down into Egypt until the Exodus. That's your complete 430 years altogether. That's the proper understanding of that text when we read in the scriptures. Not 430 years, nor 400 years as slaves in Egypt. All right? You ask any Egyptologist, even Dr. Ben, who's an Egyptologist scholar, will tell you there's no historical records to prove that. And Dr. Ben was a Hebrew that became an Egyptologist. And he knows that history more than better any one of us. And he will tell you there's no historical documents or records showing that a people was in Egypt for 430 years of slaves. There's none, because there's no dynasty that ever ruled that length of time. Like I said, the only foreign dynasty that ruled that long was the Ptolemy dynasty that ruled for 300 years. And they were not native Egyptians. They were foreigners. They were Greeks that took over Egypt. But the only longest reigning native Egyptian dynasty was the 18th dynasty, which lasted for 250 years. Some have 255. That's the full length of that dynasty.
Ptolemy was offspring of Alexander the Great.
Right, offspring from the Greeks
Okay.
that came up from the Ptolemies. And they took over Egypt after Alexander died, and they ruled in Egypt. That's where Cleopatra came from. Yes, Cleopatra's mother was black, but Cleopatra herself, she had some color, but her father was a Greek, a Ptolemy. You understand? And they ruled that dynasty for 300 years. All right? So that's pretty much that. I hope everybody got something from that. And maybe in the future, if everybody still don't understand it, I'll go more into it, but that's pretty much that. And I'd like to say tomorrow the Shabbat continues. And I say all praises to the Most High, and I can say shalom. Shalom to all Israel.
It's sad how they don't teach us in the school system today, because they want us to remain in slavery. Wow. They don't want to let go of their rulership. Go ahead, cut this off, bro.
Yeah.
Keep us in slavery.